I used to believe the Moore family was my home. For 20 years, I carried their last name, lived under their roof, and called them my family. I was wrong. To them, I was never a son. I was just a replacement, a temporary person they kept around until their real heir came back. Ethan Moore. The doctor looked at the report in his hands and remained silent for a long time. Too long. I sat across from him, watching his expression. I had already learned something in life. When people hesitate before speaking, it usually means the truth is worse than you expect. I leaned back. Doctor, just tell me, how bad is it? He finally looked up. Your condition is serious. I waited. Your illness has progressed further than we originally thought. His fingers tapped lightly against the file. Current treatments will not be enough. The room became quiet. If there is no effective treatment, he paused. You may only have about a year left. A year. That was all. Most people would collapse after hearing those words. They would cry. They would ask why this happened to them. They would desperately search for someone to hold on to. But I didn't, because long before my body started dying, something else inside me had already died. The part of me that still hoped the Moore family would one day truly accept me. Is there any other option? The doctor hesitated. There is an experimental treatment program overseas. The success rate is unknown, but if you qualify, it may extend your life. I looked at the documents. An experimental treatment. A small chance. A chance was still a chance. But I wasn't thinking about survival for the same reason I once would have. I didn't want to live so I could return to the Moore family. I didn't want their sympathy. I didn't want their apology. I wanted to live because I had unfinished business. When I walked out of the hospital, rain was falling. My phone vibrated. I looked down. The name on the screen made me stop. Vivian Moore, my oldest adopted sister, the woman who controlled the Moore Corporation, the woman who could make executives twice her age lower their heads, the woman I spent 20 years trying to impress. I answered, Vivian. There was no greeting, no concern, no question about my health, only her cold voice. Ethan, we need to talk. I looked at the hospital behind me. About what? A brief silence. Then she said, we found our real brother. I didn't speak, even though I already understood. Xavier has been located. DNA tests confirmed it. He is the true Moore family heir. Rain dripped from my hair onto my face. I quietly asked, and Vivian's voice remained calm. So you understand what that means? I smiled, not because it was funny, because it was finally clear. What does it mean? It means you need to leave. The words came easily from her mouth, almost too easily. You are not a real Moore. You never were. For years, I had wondered what moment would finally break my attachment to this family. I thought maybe it would be a huge betrayal, a dramatic argument, terrible event. I was wrong. It was just a phone call, a few simple sentences, and suddenly, 20 years of pretending disappeared. Vivian, yes. Do you know what happened today? I don't have time for emotional conversations. Ethan, I ignored that. Today I went to the hospital. A pause. The doctor gave me my results. My condition is terminal. For a moment, there was silence. A normal person would have reacted. A normal family member would have asked, are you okay? How serious is it? What can we do? Vivian didn't. Instead, she said, I'm sorry to hear that. That was all. Then, but your health problems do not change reality. You are not Xavier. You cannot stay in the Moore family just because you need us. I closed my eyes. There it was. The truth. Not hidden anymore. Not disguised. For 20 years, I had been trying to earn a place that never existed. Ethan. Her voice became slightly impatient. Tell me what you need. A house. Money. A settlement. The Moore family will compensate you. Compensate. That word almost made me laugh. 20 years of calling someone sister. 20 years of standing behind them. 20 years of protecting their secrets. And now everything was reduced to money. A transaction. Payment. I looked at the city lights through the rain. No. Vivian sounded surprised. No, I don't need anything. Are you sure? Yes. Then after today. She stopped. I knew what she wanted to say. After today. We are strangers. I saved her the trouble. Don't worry. After today. I won't contact you again. The line went silent. Then Vivian said, "That's for the best." I smiled. "Yeah, it is." I ended the call. When I returned to the Moore estate, Butler Hayes was waiting. He looked at me carefully. "Master Ethan." I shook my head. "Don't call me that anymore." His expression changed. He knew. Did they really? Yes. I walked past him. The same mansion. The same expensive furniture. The same place where I spent 20 years trying to belong. But suddenly, felt like a stranger's house. I entered my room, or what they called my room, compared with the main bedrooms of the Moore sisters. It was nothing. A small room in the basement area, away from the family, away from the guests, away from the people who mattered. I opened the closet. Inside were old things, a broken watch, childhood toys, small gifts I once bought for my sisters, things that meant everything to me, because when I was younger, I believed these objects proved I belonged here. I picked up the old watch. The hands had stopped years ago, just like my hope. I stared at it for a moment. Then I placed everything into a box. Hayes stood at the door. "Ethan." I carried the box outside. Then I threw it into the trash. His eyes widened. "You kept those things for so many years." "I know." "Then why?" I looked at the box. "Because I was holding on to a family that never existed." I turned away. The past doesn't deserve a place in my future. Before leaving, I did one more thing. I opened my laptop. For years, I had collected information, not because I planned revenge. Not back then. Back then, I still believed I could help them. Business documents, internal reports, financial records, evidence of decisions they made, evidence of people they protected, and evidence of everything they ignored, including what happened to me. I looked through the files. Then I created a new folder. The name was simple: Moore Family Reckoning. The Moore family thought they were throwing away an abandoned son. They were wrong. They were releasing someone who knew every weakness inside their empire. Someone who had nothing left to lose. I left the Moore estate that night. I didn't look back. My destination was a small house in another part of the city. A place I had never truly known. The home of my biological mother, Helen, and my younger sister, Sunny. 20 years ago, we were separated. Now, with my life running out, fate brought me back to them. I knocked. The door opened. A woman stood there. She froze. Her eyes widened. The cup in her hand slipped. "Ethan." My throat tightened. I said nothing, because she already knew. She covered her mouth. Tears filled her eyes. "My son." For the first time in 20 years, someone looked at me like I was not a replacement, not a burden, not a mistake, just a son. That night, I made a decision. I would accept the love I had finally found. I would protect Helen and Sunny, and I would make the people who destroyed my life understand one thing. They didn't lose an adopted son. They lost the person who could have saved them. And now, I was going to become the reason they fell. My revenge had begun. For 20 years, I lived in a mansion, but I never had a home. That was the first thing I realized after leaving the Moore estate. A home was not a place with expensive furniture. It was not a building guarded by security. It was not a surname that made strangers respect you. A home was the place where someone waited for you to return. And for the first time in my life, I found that place. The small house looked nothing like the Moore estate. There were no marble floors, no huge garden, no expensive decorations, just a simple front yard, an old wooden door, and a warm yellow light shining through the window. Strangely, I felt more nervous standing here than I ever did walking into a billion-dollar business meeting. Because this was different. This was the place where my real family lived. The family I lost before I even had the chance to know them. I raised my hand and knocked. A few seconds later, the door opened. A woman stood in front of me. She looked older than the photos I had secretly searched for years ago. Her hair had strands of gray. Her face carried the marks of time. But her eyes were exactly the same eyes I saw in my own reflection. She stared at me. The color slowly disappeared from her face. "Ethan." My fingers tightened. I hadn't heard my name spoken like that before. Not as an obligation, not as a responsibility, not as someone's disappointment, but as if saying my name alone was enough. Her lips trembled. Is it really you? I wanted to answer, but my throat felt strangely tight. I had faced angry executives. I had negotiated million-dollar contracts. I had stood in front of people who wanted to destroy me. Yet, at that moment, facing my own mother, I didn't know what to say. Finally, I nodded. Yes. The next second, she stepped forward and hugged me, hard, like she was afraid I would disappear again. My son. Those two words broke through every wall I had built. I didn't cry when the doctor told me I might die. I didn't cry when Vivian told me to leave. I didn't cry when I threw away 20 years of memories. But hearing my mother call me her son, that almost destroyed my composure. Mom. The voice came from behind her. A young girl stood in the hallway. She looked around 16 years old. Her eyes moved between my mother and me. Then she froze. Is he? Helen turned around. Her tears were still falling. Sonny, this is your brother. My little sister stared at me. For a moment, she didn't move. Then she slowly walked closer. You're really Ethan. I smiled. Yes. She looked down, then back at me. I thought. She hesitated. I thought you would never come back. Those words surprised me, because she said them like she had been waiting, like my existence mattered. I crouched slightly. I'm sorry I was gone so long. Sunny shook her head quickly. No, you don't have to apologize. You're here now. Simple words, but they meant more than everything I had heard in the Moore mansion. That night, Helen cooked dinner. A very simple meal. Rice, soup, a few dishes. Nothing compared with the private chefs at the Moore estate. But when I took the first bite, I stopped. Not because the food was extraordinary, because it was the first meal in my life where I didn't feel like a guest. Helen kept watching me. You like it? I nodded. It's good. She smiled. A small, careful smile, like she was afraid to be too happy. I wasn't sure what you liked. I spent years wondering if you would remember anything. I lowered my chopsticks. Mom. She looked at me. I remember. That was the truth. Even though I was taken away when I was young, some memories never disappeared. A warm voice, a gentle hand, a feeling of being loved. Those things stayed somewhere deep inside. After dinner, Sunny showed me my room. It was small, but clean. A desk, a bed, a bookshelf. Nothing luxurious. Yet I stood there for a long time, because this room was prepared for me. Not because someone needed something from me. Not because I had value to the family. Simply because I was their son. I sat on the bed. Then my phone vibrated. A message from my doctor. The latest medical report. I opened it. The results were worse than expected. For several seconds, I stared at the screen. Then I locked the phone. No one saw my expression change. Especially not Helen. I had already made my decision. I would not spend my remaining time being a victim. The next morning, I contacted the Medical Research Center overseas. Mr. Moore. The doctor on the other end sounded surprised. You want to participate in the experimental treatment? Yes. You understand the risks? I do. There is a chance it may fail. I know. And the recovery process will be extremely difficult. I looked out the window. Sunny was sitting at the table doing homework. Helen was preparing breakfast. A real family. The family I had only just found. I have a reason to survive. The doctor became silent. Then we will begin preparing. After ending the call, I opened my laptop. It was time to start. Not revenge. Not yet. Preparation. I created several folders. The first one, Vivian Moore. Inside, business decisions, emails, financial records, public statements. The second, Melody Moore. Music files, original compositions, draft versions, creation dates. The third, Xavier Moore. Everything suspicious, every inconsistency, every mistake he made. For years, I had been the invisible person behind them, the person who solved problems, the person who cleaned up their messes, the person they never noticed. That was their biggest mistake. They forgot the person standing in the shadows saw everything. That afternoon, I received an unexpected message from an unknown number. Ethan, we need to talk. I looked at the sender. Vivian. I deleted it. A minute later, another message arrived. This is about your belongings. I ignored it. Then another. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I almost laughed. Harder. For 20 years, I had tried to make everything easier for them. Now they were uncomfortable because I stopped. Interesting. A few hours later, I received a call. This time, I answered. Ethan. Vivian's voice sounded different. Not softer, but less confident. Your things are ready. My assistant can deliver them. No need, I replied. Throw them away. Silence. What? You heard me. Those things are yours. No. I looked at the small room around me. My life is not in those boxes. Vivian lowered her voice. You're angry. No, I'm clear. Another silence. Then she said, you will regret turning your back on the Moore family. I smiled. No, Vivian, the person who will regret this is you. I ended the call. That night, I sat in front of the piano Sonny borrowed from a neighbor. My fingers touched the keys. The familiar feeling returned instantly. Music had always been my escape. When I was younger, I created songs because I had no one to talk to. When Melody became famous, I gave her those songs because I wanted her to succeed. But now, I would no longer create music for someone else's glory. I would create it for myself. My fingers moved. A melody slowly filled the room. Sunny stopped outside the door. She listened quietly. Then she whispered, brother. I turned around. You're amazing. I smiled. No, I'm just someone who finally has a reason to play. That night, I made 3 promises. The first, I would survive. The second, I would protect Helen and Sunny. The third, I would make the Moore family face the truth. Not because I hated them, because they needed to understand. The person they abandoned was the person they should have feared the most. And soon, the entire world would know my name, not as the abandoned son of the Moore family, but as Ethan Moore, the man who rose after they tried to destroy him. 3 weeks. That was how long it took me to completely disappear from the Moore family's world. And 3 weeks was also how long it took me to rebuild myself. During those 20 years at the Moore estate, everyone thought I was useless, a rich family's adopted son, a person who depended on their kindness, someone who had nothing except the Moore surname. They were wrong. The truth was simple. I had spent 20 years hiding my abilities because I believed family mattered more than recognition. Now I understood something. If the world only respected power, then I would become someone they could never ignore. The first thing I did after leaving the Moore family was to sell one of my unfinished compositions. Not publicly, not under my real name. I used the identity I had created years ago, Mr. Vale, a mysterious composer who had never shown his face. For years, people in the music industry had searched for him. Some believed he was an old master hiding from fame. Some believed he was a group of professional composers. Nobody imagined that Mr. Vale was just a young man who lived quietly inside the Moore mansion. A young man who sat in a small basement room and wrote music after everyone else went to sleep. The contract arrived 2 days later. A major music company wanted exclusive rights. The price was impressive, but I refused. The agent sounded confused. Mr. Vale, do you understand what you're turning down? Yes. This offer is enough to make you famous. I don't need fame yet. A pause. Then what do you want? I looked at the documents on my desk. Control. The agent laughed awkwardly. You're asking for something most artists spend their entire careers trying to get. I know. Then why do you think we would agree? Because I knew the future. Because I knew exactly which companies would rise, which industries would collapse, which investments would multiply. My illness had taken away my time, but it had also given me something most people never had. A reason to stop wasting it. I started investing. Small amounts at first. Technology startups. Real estate projects. Companies that everyone ignored because they were too early. I wasn't gambling. I was calculating. My business professors used to say I had an unusual ability to see opportunities before others. The Moore family never noticed. They only saw the adopted child sitting quietly at the dinner table. They never saw the person reading financial reports at midnight. They never saw the person who helped them avoid several failed investments. They never knew. The person they ignored had been protecting their empire. Meanwhile, the Moore family was preparing a welcome celebration for Xavier, the real son, the heir. the person who replaced me. I saw the news online. More family welcomes long-lost son home. The picture showed Vivian smiling beside Xavier. Melody stood on the other side. The perfect family portrait. I stared at it for several seconds. Then I closed the page. No anger. No sadness. Nothing. That was the strangest part. I thought seeing them happy without me would hurt. But it didn't, because I finally understood. I wasn't losing my family. I was leaving people who had already abandoned me. 1 month after leaving the Moore estate, my university held its annual welcome gala. Normally, I would have avoided events like this. I had spent most of my life staying away from attention. But this time was different. I needed a stage, not for fame, for the first move. The music industry needed to know Mr. Vale existed. And the business world needed to know Ethan Moore was not a nobody. Ethan. I turned around. Claire Yates was standing behind me. She was holding 2 coffees. My best friend from high school. The only person outside my biological family who knew what happened. You're actually performing tonight. I took the coffee. Yes. She looked surprised. You hate attention. I used to. She studied my face. You've changed. I smiled slightly. Maybe I finally stopped trying to become someone others wanted me to be. Claire didn't answer. She just looked at me quietly. She had always been observant. She knew there was something different about me, but she never forced me to explain. That was one of the reasons I trusted her. The gala hall was packed. Students, professors, media representatives. Everyone was waiting for the performances. Nobody knew my name. Nobody cared. That was exactly what I wanted. The host walked onto the stage. Next, we have a special performance from a freshman student. The audience applauded politely. A few people whispered, a freshman, probably just a normal performance. Why is he opening the show? I walked onto the stage. The spotlight followed me. I sat down at the piano. The moment my fingers touched the keys, everything became silent. The first note fell. Then the second. Within seconds, the atmosphere changed. People who were talking stopped. People checking their phones looked up. Because they realized something. This wasn't a student's performance. This was something different. The melody started softly, like a quiet memory. Then it grew. A story. A battle. A confession. Every emotion I had buried for 20 years poured into the music. The loneliness. The betrayal. The determination. The decision to fight. The entire hall was completely still. At the back of the room, a music professor stood up. Who wrote this? Another professor looked at the program. Ethan Moore. No, he shook his head. That can't be right. Because this level of composition. He stared at the stage. This is professional. 10 minutes later, the final note disappeared. I lifted my hands from the piano. For a few seconds, nobody reacted. Then the entire hall exploded. Applause. Shouting. People standing. Phones recording. The video was already spreading online. That night, the internet changed my life. A video appeared on every major platform. Unknown student performs original composition and stuns university gala. Millions of people watched. Comments flooded in. Who is this guy? This isn't a student. This is a master. Where can I find this song? This sounds like Mr. Vale. And then something unexpected happened. A famous music producer saw the video. His name was Daniel Nash, the same person who had been searching for Mr. Vale for years. He watched my performance 3 times. Then he made one phone call. Find him. Who? The pianist from the video. A pause. And I don't care what it costs. At the same time, inside the Moore estate, Melody was sitting in front of her piano. She was watching the same video. Her face slowly changed, because she recognized the melody. She knew those fingers. She knew that style. Impossible. She whispered, no, the person playing on the screen was the person they had thrown away. The next morning, the headlines appeared. A new piano genius emerges. Is this mysterious musician connected to Mr. Vale? And beneath all the attention, a simple name appeared. Ethan Moore, the abandoned son of the Moore family. The man they believed had nothing. The man they thought would come crawling back. They were about to learn the truth. I never wanted to return to their world. I was building a new one. and soon, the entire world would know who I really was. The world changed overnight. 1 month ago, nobody knew my name. Now, every major music platform was discussing me. But the person most affected by my sudden appearance was not the media. It was Melody Moore. Melody was sitting alone in her bedroom. The room was filled with awards, gold records, platinum albums, every achievement a musician could dream of. For years, this room represented her success. But tonight, everything felt unfamiliar, because for the first time, she started questioning whether any of it truly belonged to her. Her assistant placed a tablet on the table. "Miss Moore, the video has passed 10 million views." Melody didn't respond. She was staring at the piano in front of her. The same piano where she spent countless nights practicing. The same piano where another person had sat beside her. Ethan. When they were children, everyone thought Melody was a musical genius. They were wrong. She struggled with composition. She struggled with music theory. She struggled to create anything original. But Ethan always seemed different. At 7 years old, he could play complicated pieces after hearing them once. 10. He could create melodies that made adults speechless. At 12, he started writing songs, but nobody knew, because Ethan never showed the world his talent. He only showed it to her. "Try this." Young Ethan had placed a sheet of music in front of Melody. She looked confused. "What is it?" "A song. I can't play this." "You can." "No, I can't." Ethan smiled. "You always say that before you succeed." Those words stayed with her, because every time she wanted to give up, Ethan was there. Every time she failed, Ethan encouraged her. Every time she stood on stage and received applause, he was somewhere in the audience, quietly smiling. But Melody forgot, or maybe she chose to forget, because fame changed things. When the world started calling her a genius, she believed it. When reporters asked about her inspiration, she gave elegant answers. She thanked her teachers. She thanked her fans. She thanked her family, but never Ethan. Never the person who created the foundation of her career. The memory suddenly became painful. Melody looked at the screen again. The performance video was still playing. The way Ethan moved his fingers. The way he controlled the emotion of every note. She knew that style. She had known it for years, because she had listened to it countless times. Only one person played like that. Ethan. Her voice trembled. No. She immediately rejected the thought. Couldn't be him. Ethan was never interested in fame. Ethan was always hiding. Ethan was the person standing behind the curtain, not on the stage. But then her phone rang. It was her music mentor. "Melody." "Yes." "Have you seen the performance?" She hesitated. "Yes." The voice on the other end became serious. "Do you know who that pianist is?" Melody didn't answer. Her fingers tightened around the phone. The mentor continued. "I have studied Mr. Vale's compositions for years, and this student's style. It is almost identical." A cold feeling spread through her. "What are you saying?" The mentor lowered his voice. "I think the person who wrote your songs may have been Ethan Moore." The room became silent. Melody stopped breathing for a moment. "What?" "Think about it. Every song you released from your breakthrough period, they all appeared after Ethan started spending time with you." Melody's face turned pale. "No, he couldn't." But even as she said it, she remembered the late nights, the handwritten papers, the unfinished melodies, the moments when Ethan said, "This one suits your voice." At the time, she thought he was helping her. She never asked where those songs came from, because she never imagined the answer could hurt this much. Meanwhile, I was sitting in a quiet coffee shop near campus. Claire placed a newspaper in front of me. "You're famous now." I looked at the headline. "Unknown pianist shocks the music world." I smiled. "Not exactly." Claire raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "The world knows Ethan Moore, but they still don't know Mr. Vale." She stared at me. "Ethan, what? How much have you been hiding?" I looked outside the window. For years, I had hidden because I didn't want attention. Now, I was hiding because timing mattered. Revenge was not about destroying someone overnight. It was about letting them realize exactly what they had lost. That afternoon, I received a call from Daniel Nash, the producer who had searched for Mr. Vale for years. Mr. Moore. Yes, I want to meet you. I. A short laugh came from the other side. Because I have spent 10 years searching for the greatest unknown composer in America. And I think I finally found him. I remained silent. He continued, I don't know your story, but I know talent. You are not just a pianist. You are a composer, an extraordinary one. I looked at the city outside. Mr. Nash. Yes, I have one condition. Name it. I keep ownership of my music. No hesitation. Agreed. And one more thing. What? I decide when the world knows who Mr. Vale is. There was a pause. Then he smiled. I like that. That evening, the Moore family finally noticed something was wrong. Vivian was watching financial news when Melody entered the room. Vivian. She looked up. What happened? Melody's expression was complicated. You remember Ethan? Vivian frowned. What about him? He is Mr. Vale. The room became silent. Vivian stared at her, then laughed. That is impossible. Ethan, the boy who lived in our house for 20 years. The boy who never showed any musical talent. Melody looked at her. You never saw his talent. Vivian's expression changed slightly. What does that mean? Melody's voice became quiet. It means, we never knew him. Vivian refused to believe it. She immediately searched for information. The more she found, the more uncomfortable she became. The anonymous composer, Mr. Vale. The mysterious songwriter behind dozens of hits. The person who disappeared whenever the media tried to find him. Everything pointed to one person, Ethan Moore. Then Vivian found an old file. A music competition from years ago. A young Ethan's name was listed. First place. Perfect score. She froze, because she remembered that day. Ethan had come home excited. He wanted to show her the certificate. She had been busy. She had told him, not now. She never looked at it. She never asked. She never cared. For the first time in years, Vivian felt something she hated, regret, but she immediately pushed it away. No, she whispered, he can't hate us. He wouldn't, because Vivian still believed one thing. Ethan was the same boy who always waited for them, the same boy who always forgave them. She didn't understand. That person was gone. 2 days later, Vivian came to my university. The moment she appeared, people recognized her. The powerful CEO of Moore Corporation. Students whispered, why is she here? She came to see Ethan. I saw her from a distance. For a moment, our eyes met. She walked toward me. Ethan. I stopped. Ms. Moore. Her expression changed, because I had never called her that before. She forced a smile. Can we talk? No. The answer came immediately. She froze. I just want to explain. There is nothing to explain. Ethan. I looked at her calmly. You made your choice. You chose your real son. You chose to throw me away. So why are you surprised that I accepted your decision? Her lips moved, but no words came out. She lowered her voice. We miss you. I looked at her, then laughed softly. No, you miss the person who helped you. You miss the person who fixed your problems. You miss the person who made your family look perfect. But you don't miss me. The silence around us became heavy. Vivian's eyes turned red. For the first time, she looked like someone who had lost something. But I felt nothing, because I had already lost it long ago. Before leaving, I looked back at her. Vivian. She looked up. The biggest mistake you made was thinking I needed the Moore family to become someone. I paused. The truth is, the Moore family needed me. Then I walked away, leaving behind the woman who once decided my fate. And for the first time, she understood. The abandoned son she looked down on was the person standing above them all. After Vivian left my university, I thought she would give up. I was wrong. People like Vivian Moore were not used to losing. She had spent her entire life standing at the top. She believed money could solve every problem. She believed power could control every person, including me, but she forgot one thing. The person she was trying to control was the same person who knew every weakness of the Moore family. 3 days after our meeting, I received a message, not from Vivian, from her assistant, Mr. Ethan Moore. Miss Vivian would like to meet with you again. I looked at the message for a few seconds, then deleted it. 10 minutes later, another message arrived. She wants to discuss compensation. I almost laughed. Compensation. That word again. They always thought everything had a price. A company could be bought. A contract could be negotiated. Problem could be solved with money. But they never understood something. Some wounds were not caused by losing money. They were caused by realizing you never mattered. Meanwhile, my own company was beginning to take shape. Daniel Nash introduced me to several investors. At first, they only came because of my music. They wanted to invest in the mysterious composer who shocked the internet. But after reviewing my business plans, their attitude changed. One investor looked at my proposal for a technology company and frowned. "You're telling me you want to enter artificial intelligence?" "Yes." "You understand this market is extremely competitive." "I do." "And you believe a small company can compete against giants?" I looked at him calmly. "No." He seemed surprised. "No. We won't compete with them. We will replace them." The room became silent. Most people would have thought I was arrogant. But I wasn't. I had spent years studying business. The Moore family taught me one thing. A giant company rarely falls because of a stronger enemy. It falls because it refuses to change. A week later, our first investment announcement shocked the industry. A small technology startup that nobody noticed suddenly received major funding. The company's value increased rapidly. Financial analysts began asking, "Who is behind this?" Nobody knew, because I wasn't ready to reveal everything. Not yet. While my new life was growing, the Moore family's problems had started. It began with a financial report. Vivian was sitting in the executive office when her assistant entered. "Miss Moore." She looked up. "What happened?" The assistant placed a document on the desk. "The shareholders are questioning several old projects." Vivian frowned. "Which projects?" The assistant hesitated. "The ones involving Ethan." The room became quiet. "What does Ethan have to do with this?" The assistant lowered his voice. "Apparently, some decisions from years ago were not as profitable as the reports showed." Vivian opened the document. Her expression changed, because she recognized the information. These were internal reports. Reports she thought nobody had access to. Years ago, when I was still living at the Moore estate, I helped Vivian analyze company investments. I was only 16. She thought I was just a kid playing around. But the suggestions I made saved the company millions. She never asked how I knew. She only accepted the results. Now she was seeing the same documents again. Except this time, they were evidence. Vivian immediately called me. I answered after several rings. "Ethan." "Miss Moore." The silence was uncomfortable. She hated hearing that, because she knew I used to call her sister. Now she was just another person. "We need to talk." "About what?" "The company." I smiled slightly. "Interesting. What?" "When I helped your company, you called me family. Now that you need help again, you remember I exist." Her voice became tense. "That isn't fair." "No." I looked at the documents in front of me. "Then tell me, when you decided to remove me from the family, did you think about whether it was fair?" Silence. Vivian took a breath. "Ethan, whatever happened between us?" "Between us?" I interrupted. "There was no between us. You made your choice. You chose Xavier. You chose the reputation of the Moore family. You chose to believe someone who lied." Her voice lowered. "We can fix this." "No." The answer was immediate. "You can't fix something you never valued." After hanging up, I opened another folder. The title was Moore Corporation Investigation. Inside were years of information, not just about Vivian, about the entire family. I wasn't destroying them blindly. I was giving them exactly what they deserved. A chance to face the truth. The first person who fell was not Vivian. It was Melody. Her scandal had already started spreading. Music critics began analyzing her old songs. Fans questioned the similarities between her work and Mr. Vale's compositions. The internet was unforgiving. Was Melody Moore's entire career built on someone else's talent? Did the famous singer steal from an unknown genius? Every article made her situation worse. Melody called me that night. I looked at her name on the screen. The girl who once sat beside me and dreamed about becoming a musician. The girl whose dreams I helped build. I answered, "Ethan." Her voice was shaking. "Please." I said nothing. "I know you hate me." "I don't." She paused. You don't. No. My answer surprised her. I don't hate you, because hatred means you still matter. The other side became silent. Ethan, you made your choice. I made mine. She started crying. I was wrong. Yes. The honesty surprised her. You admit it. Yes. You were wrong. I looked out the window, but realizing it doesn't erase what happened. Can we start over? No. The answer was quiet, but final. Because you don't miss me. You miss the person who made you successful. She cried harder. That's not true. Then tell me, before you knew Mr. Vale was me, did you ever try to find me? Silence. That silence answered everything. The next morning, I released the first part of my evidence. Not everything, just enough. The original manuscripts, the creation dates, the recording files, every song Melody claimed as her own. The truth was undeniable. The entire internet exploded. Breaking news. International singer Melody more accused of using anonymous composer's work. Mr. Vale revealed as the true creator behind multiple hits. Within hours, sponsors suspended contracts. Music companies began distancing themselves. Fans demanded answers. The woman who once stood under millions of lights was now standing under millions of accusations. At the same time, Vivian watched the news from her office. Her hands trembled because she finally understood. The person they ignored, the person they pushed away, the person they thought had nothing, was the person who could destroy everything. Her assistant entered. Miss Moore. She looked up. What? The assistant hesitated. Someone leaked another file. Vivian froze. What file? The assistant looked at her. Your family records. For the first time in years, Vivian felt fear, because she knew this was only the beginning. That night, I sat beside the piano. Claire stood behind me. You really planned all of this. I continued playing. Yes. Even before you left. Yes. She was quiet, then asked, Are you sure this is what you want? I stopped playing. I looked at the reflection of myself in the piano. I don't want revenge because I hate them. I want revenge because they need to understand. People who destroy someone else's life should never be allowed to pretend nothing happened. Claire walked closer, then gently placed her hand on my shoulder. But don't forget, you still have people who love you. I looked at her. At that moment, I remembered something important. My revenge was not the reason I survived. My family was, my mother, my sister, and Claire. They were my future. The Moore family was my past. And I was finally ready to bury the past completely. The downfall of the Moore family did not happen overnight. A powerful family like theirs did not collapse because of one scandal. Collapsed because the foundation had been rotten for years. And I was about to reveal the final piece. The person who started everything. Xavier Moore. When Xavier returned to the Moore family, everyone believed he was the answer to their prayers. The lost son. The true heir. The person who would continue the Moore legacy. Vivian held a grand welcome ceremony. The media called it a miracle. The Moore family finally reunited. Nobody knew the truth. Nobody knew that the man standing beside them was the reason I lost everything. I first met Xavier when I was 8 years old. Back then, I didn't hate him. I didn't even know he would become my enemy. I remember asking Vivian, Is he really our brother? She smiled. Yes. I looked at Xavier. He smiled back, but there was something in his eyes. Something I didn't understand at the time. Jealousy. Because even before he came back to the Moore family, he already knew something. He knew I existed, and he knew I had taken his place. After I left the Moore family, I started investigating. Not because I wanted revenge immediately, because I wanted the truth. I wanted to know why someone who had just returned could erase 20 years of my life so easily. The answer was hidden in old records, adoption documents, communication logs, financial transfers, and finally, conversation. I watched the recording again. It was Xavier. Years ago, before he returned to the Moore family, he was talking to someone. I don't care what happens. I need to become the only son. The other person asked, What about Ethan? Xavier laughed. He doesn't know anything. He's just an adopted kid. He thinks kindness means something. My hands tightened. Not because I was surprised, because I already knew. People like Xavier always reveal themselves eventually. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what came next. The false accusation. The rumor that almost destroyed me. Years ago, I was accused of harassing a female student. The Moore family believed it immediately. Vivian didn't ask questions. She didn't investigate. She just looked at me with disappointment. I still remembered her words. "I never thought you could become someone like this." Those words hurt more than the accusation itself. Because she didn't doubt the rumor. She doubted me. Now I had the proof. The accusation was fake. The girl who accused me received money. The payment records. The messages. Everything. And the person behind it was Xavier. I sent everything to my lawyer. "Prepare the documents." He looked through the files. Then looked at me. "Ethan." "Yes. Are you sure?" "About what?" "Once this goes public, there is no going back." I closed the folder. There was no going back when they abandoned me. The next morning, the news exploded. Not because of another music scandal. Not because of another business report. Because the real criminal behind the Moore family's biggest internal conflict had been exposed. Breaking news. Xavier Moore accused of fabricating evidence against adopted brother. New investigation reveals false allegations and financial manipulation. The Moore estate became chaos. Vivian watched the news in disbelief. "No!" She shook her head. "This can't be true." Her assistant stood silently. Because everyone knew. The evidence was real. Xavier arrived at the office that afternoon. For the first time, he wasn't smiling. He looked nervous. "You believe this?" Vivian stared at him. Her expression was complicated. "You need to explain." Xavier immediately became defensive. "It's fake. Someone is trying to frame me." Vivian watched him carefully. "Then why does the evidence lead to you?" Silence. That was the first time she questioned him. Not as a brother, but as a businessman. Xavier looked at her. "You believe Ethan." That sentence changed everything. Because even now, even after everything, his first reaction wasn't regret. It was anger toward me. Vivian saw it. She finally understood. The person she protected was never innocent. That evening, Xavier came to find me. I expected anger, threats, maybe even an apology. Instead, he laughed. "You think you won?" I looked at him calmly. "No, you already lost." His expression darkened. "You have no idea what you're doing." "I know exactly what I'm doing. You are destroying the Moore family." I looked at him. "No, you did that." He stepped closer. "You think they will choose you. They never loved you." I smiled. That sentence was supposed to hurt, but it didn't, because Xavier didn't understand. I no longer needed their love. "You are right." He froze. I continued. "They didn't choose me. But now they know who they should have chosen." Xavier clenched his fists. "You are still the same weak person who hides behind others." I laughed quietly. "Interesting. That's exactly what everyone thought. Until I stopped hiding." The investigation moved quickly. The evidence was overwhelming. Xavier had fabricated accusations, manipulated witnesses, purchased false information, attempted to damage my reputation. The person who wanted to become the Moore heir destroyed his own future. The day Xavier was arrested, the media surrounded the courthouse. The same reporters who once celebrated his return were now asking, "Mr. Moore, did you frame Ethan? Did you manipulate the family? Did you steal his position?" He lowered his head. No answer. For the first time in his life, nobody cared about his image. I watched the news from home. Claire sat beside me. "How do you feel?" I thought about it. Honestly, I felt nothing. Not happiness. Not satisfaction. Just peace. Because I finally knew the truth. The person who destroyed my life had been exposed. That night, Vivian came to my house. I didn't invite her in. She stood outside, different from the woman I remembered. The confident CEO, the powerful leader, gone. She looked tired. I was wrong. I remained silent. She lowered her head. "I should have believed you." I looked at her. "Yes." She looked surprised. I continued, "You should have. But you didn't." Tears appeared in her eyes. I want to make it right. I shook my head. No. Why? Because some mistakes are not fixed by apologies. She looked at me. You really don't forgive us. I answered honestly. I forgave you a long time ago. She froze. Then why? Because forgiveness doesn't mean returning. I looked back at my house, at the place where my real family lived. My life moved on, and you are still standing where you left me. After she left, I received a message from the medical center. The experimental treatment had been approved. My first appointment was scheduled. For the first time in months, I smiled, because my story wasn't ending. It was beginning. The Moore family thought they destroyed me. They were wrong. They only removed the chains. Now I was free. Free to build my empire. Free to protect the people who loved me. And free to decide my own future. Because the biggest revenge wasn't watching them fall. It was proving I could rise without them. The day Xavier Moore was arrested, the world finally saw the truth. The man who had returned to the Moore family as their lost heir was nothing more than a carefully disguised fraud. For years, everyone believed Xavier was the missing piece of the Moore family, the son who would restore their legacy, the person who would carry the Moore name into the future. But the truth was much simpler. He was just another person who wanted power, and he was willing to destroy anyone standing in his way, including me. After Xavier's arrest, the media surrounded the Moore family. Every headline was about their scandal. Every news channel was discussing their downfall. The same reporters who once praised the Moore family were now questioning them. How did the Moore family fail to discover the truth? Was the adopted son Ethan Moore the real victim? Did the Moore family abandon the wrong person? I watched the reports quietly, not because I enjoyed seeing them suffer, but because for the first time, the world knew what happened. I didn't need to explain myself anymore, but my own battle was not finished. The next morning, I entered the medical center. The experimental treatment program was located in a private research hospital, a place where doctors were trying to save people who had run out of options. The doctor in charge, Dr. Anderson, looked through my records. Ethan, yes, I want you to understand something. He placed the documents on the table. This treatment is not guaranteed. I know, there may be serious side effects. I know, you have a long recovery ahead. I looked at him. Doctor, yes, I spent 20 years living for people who didn't care about me. I think I can handle fighting for myself. He looked at me for a moment, then smiled. Good answer. The treatment began. The process was painful, more painful than I expected. There were nights when my body felt like it was breaking apart. There were moments when I questioned whether I could continue. But every time I wanted to give up, I thought about Helen. I thought about Sunny. I thought about Claire, the people who finally gave me a reason to live. Not because they needed me, but because they loved me. Claire visited every day. She always brought something unnecessary. Books, coffee, sometimes food she claimed was healthy but clearly wasn't. One evening, I looked at the bag she brought. What is this? She looked away. Dinner. I opened it. Inside was a sandwich. I raised an eyebrow. Claire, what? This is burned. She immediately became defensive. It is not burned. It is just. She paused. Extra cooked. I laughed. A real laugh. The kind I hadn't had in a long time. She looked at me. What? Nothing. What? I shook my head. I just forgot what it felt like to laugh. Her expression softened. Then she sat beside me. You know something, Ethan? What? You always act like you have to be strong. I looked away. Someone has to be. No. She shook her head. You don't. I looked at her. She continued. Not with me. For years, I believed weakness meant asking for help. The Moore family taught me that. If I was useful, they wanted me. If I had problems, I became a burden. But Claire was different. She didn't care about what I could give her. She cared about who I was. And slowly, I realized something. My revenge was never supposed to become my entire life. During my treatment, my company continued growing. Daniel Nash helped manage the music side. The technology investments expanded. The business world began paying attention. A financial magazine published an article, The Mystery Investor Behind 3 Successful Startups. Nobody knew the person behind them was me. Not yet. I wanted to build something stronger before revealing everything. The Moore family had taught me one lesson. A person without power could be ignored. So I built power. Not to hurt innocent people. Not to become like them. But so nobody could ever decide my worth again. 3 months later, I returned to campus. The reaction was completely different. Before, people ignored me. Now, everyone knew my name. Students whispered when I walked by, "That's Ethan Moore, the composer, the guy who exposed Melody, the investor." I ignored the attention. Fame was never what I wanted. Respect was. That evening, I received an invitation. A charity concert. The organizers wanted Mr. Vale to perform. I almost refused, but Claire looked at me. "You should go." Because hiding is what you did before. I stayed silent. She smiled. "You spent 20 years letting others shine. Maybe now it's your turn." The concert was held in the city's largest auditorium. Thousands of people filled the seats. The same type of stage where Melody once stood. The difference was, I wasn't standing behind someone anymore. I walked onto the stage alone. The host introduced me. "Tonight, we welcome the composer whose music changed the industry, the creator known as Mr. Vale." The audience erupted. I sat down at the piano. For a moment, I looked at the crowd. Then I began playing. The song was new. I wrote it during my darkest moments. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about anger. It was about survival, about losing everything, and discovering you still had something worth protecting. The final note ended. The audience was silent. Then everyone stood. The applause lasted for minutes. After the performance, a reporter approached me. "Mr. Moore." "Yes." "Many people say your success is a form of revenge against the Moore family." I looked at the cameras, then answered, "No." The reporter looked surprised. "No, my success is not revenge. Revenge means my life is still controlled by them." I paused. "The truth is, they are no longer important enough to define me." The interview went viral, and somewhere inside the Moore mansion, Vivian watched it. She watched the man she once abandoned stand confidently in front of the entire world. No anger, no hatred, just peace. For the first time, she understood. The person she lost was not an adopted son. She lost someone who had already become greater than the entire Moore family. That night, Vivian came to my house again. This time, she didn't bring money. She didn't bring contracts. She didn't bring excuses. She simply stood outside. When I opened the door, she lowered her head. "Ethan." I waited. "I'm sorry." A simple sentence. The sentence she should have said years ago. I looked at her. "Thank you." Her eyes lifted. She seemed surprised. "You forgive me?" "No." Her expression froze. "I accept your apology. But forgiveness doesn't mean returning to the past." Tears appeared in her eyes. "I was your sister." I nodded. "Yes, you were." The word hurt her, because she understood the meaning. Past tense. She whispered, "Is there really no chance?" I looked back at the house, at the warm lights, at the place where Helen and Sunny were waiting for me. Then I answered, "No," because I finally found the family I was looking for. After she left, I received another message. The hospital results. The treatment had worked. The disease was responding. My condition was improving. For the first time, I saw a future, not one measured by months, not one controlled by a countdown. A real future. I looked at the message for a long time. Then I smiled, because the Moore family thought my life was ending the day they abandoned me. They were wrong. That day wasn't my ending. It was my beginning. And now, I had everything they could never take away. Family, a future, and a life that finally belonged to me. 1 year ago, I left the Moore estate with nothing. No family, no status, no future. Everyone thought my life ended the moment Vivian told me to leave. They were wrong. That was the day my real life began. The news of my recovery shocked everyone, especially the Moore family. For months, they believed my illness would eventually destroy me. They thought time was on their side. They thought I would return, a desperate son, a lonely man, someone who would accept any apology because he had nowhere else to go. But they misunderstood one thing. I never wanted to return. I wanted to move forward. My company, Ethan Global, officially launched 6 months after my treatment succeeded. The first day we opened, every major financial magazine covered the story. The mysterious young entrepreneur behind multiple billion-dollar investments revealed. Ethan Moore, the genius composer who became a business titan. The same people who once called me a useless adopted son now used words like visionary, genius, leader. But those words didn't change me, because I remembered the days when nobody believed in me, and I remembered the people who did. My mother, Helen, never cared about my achievements. When I became famous, she didn't ask about money. She didn't ask about companies. The first thing she asked was, "Are you eating properly?" I laughed. "Mom, I own a company worth billions now." She looked at me seriously. "That doesn't answer my question." I smiled, and for the first time in my life, I felt lucky because I finally understood. Real love doesn't come from people who need your success. It comes from people who care about you before anyone knows your name. Sunny also changed. The little girl who once stood nervously at the door when I returned became a confident young woman. She joined my company as a design assistant. One day, she looked at my office and smiled. "Brother, yes. Do you remember the first day you came here?" I nodded. "You looked so lonely." I laughed. "Did I?" "Yes." She looked at me. "But now, you look different." "How?" She smiled. "You look like someone who finally knows where he belongs." And Claire, she was still beside me, through everything. When the world discovered my identity, when reporters followed me, when investors wanted meetings, when my name appeared everywhere, she was the same person. The person who saw Ethan before the world saw Mr. Vale. One evening, we walked through the city. No security, no assistants, no cameras, just us. Claire looked at me. "Do you ever think about them?" I knew who she meant. The Moore family. I was quiet for a moment. Then I answered. "Sometimes." "Do you miss them?" I thought about Vivian, Melody, Xavier, the mansion, the years I spent trying to belong. Then I shook my head. "No." Claire looked surprised. "Not even a little." I smiled. "I used to miss the family I thought I had. But I don't miss people who never existed." The Moore family had completely changed. After Xavier's arrest, their reputation collapsed. The company survived, but the glory was gone. Vivian stepped down from several positions. The woman who once controlled everything now spent most of her time trying to repair the damage. Melody disappeared from the music industry. After the truth about her songs became public, her career never recovered. The world remembered her differently, not as a genius, but as someone who stole another person's talent. 1 year after everything happened, Vivian contacted me again. This time, I agreed to meet, not because I wanted anything, because I wanted closure. We met at a quiet restaurant. When she arrived, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked tired, not physically, emotionally. The confidence she once carried was gone. She sat across from me. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, she said, "You really became everything we never expected." I looked at her. "No." She frowned. "What?" "I became who I always was." The answer made her lower her eyes. "I was wrong." Her voice was quiet. "I should have protected you." "Yes." She looked surprised by my direct answer. I continued, "You should have. I was your brother. I needed you, but you chose not to see me." Her eyes became red. "I know." She took out a check. A large amount. More money than most people could earn in a lifetime. She placed it on the table. "This is compensation." I looked at it, then pushed it back. "I don't want it. Ethan." "No." My voice remained calm. "Do you know what hurts the most?" She looked at me. It wasn't being poor. It wasn't being abandoned. It was realizing that the people I trusted valued money more than me. She couldn't answer. "Take it." She whispered. "Please, I can't change the past, but I want to do something." I looked at her. "Then do this." She waited. Remember what you did. Remember how easily you threw someone away. Because maybe then, you won't destroy another person the way you destroyed me." She cried. For the first time, I saw Vivian Moore not as a powerful CEO, not as the woman who rejected me, just as a person facing the consequences of her choices. But regret was not enough. Some things could be forgiven, but they could never be undone. Before leaving, Vivian asked, "Do you hate us?" I stopped, then answered honestly, "No." She looked surprised. "I don't hate you, because hate would mean you still control my emotions." I looked at her. "You don't." A few weeks later, I held my first global concert. Thousands of people filled the arena. The lights dimmed. The audience became silent. I walked onto the stage. The host introduced me, "Ladies and gentlemen, the world-renowned composer, the founder of Ethan Global, the man who turned tragedy into success, Ethan Moore." The applause was overwhelming. I sat at the piano. My hands rested on the keys, and I remembered the boy who once sat alone in a basement room. The boy who believed he wasn't wanted. The boy who thought he had to earn love. I wanted to tell him something. You were never worthless. You were never unwanted. You were simply surrounded by people who couldn't recognize your value. I played the final song, the song I wrote after everything ended. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about the Moore family. It was about a new beginning. When the final note faded, the entire arena stood. Later that night, I stood outside with Claire. The city lights surrounded us. She looked at me. "So, are you happy?" I thought about the past, the pain, the betrayal, the loneliness. Then I looked at the people waiting for me. My mother, my sister, the woman I loved, my future. I smiled. Yes, for the first time, I really am. People often ask what my greatest revenge was. Some think it was exposing Melody. Some think it was destroying Xavier. Some think it was watching the Moore family's empire fall. They are wrong. My greatest revenge was simple. I survived. I became someone they could never control. I built a life they could never take away. The family that abandoned me thought they were ending my story, but they only gave me the reason to write a better one. My name is Ethan Moore, and this time, my story belongs only to me.